Kanye West just dropped his best album of all time, and that's how this video would have started if it was published in November of 2010, but unfortunately 14 years later, not only can the opposite be said in that Kanye has just dropped his worst album of all time, but there's some bigger, scarier things that we need to touch on in this video that have definitely led to Kanye's demise over the last several years. And I've been saying this for a while, but in order for Kanye to preserve and save the legacy that he's worked so hard to build, and at this point potentially saving his own health and well-being, I think it's come to the point where Kanye needs to seriously either reconsider retirement or clear out and replace his entire team. And it's very possible that that's what Kanye wants to do, but there's something bigger that's stopping him from doing so. So in this video, we're going to dive into why things are looking a little bit scary for Kanye currently, but just to give some backstory, there was recently an announcement on Kanye's website that we would be getting the second installment of the Vultures series on August 2nd. And in typical Kanye fashion, this didn't come to fruition, the album was pushed back, but surprisingly, the pushback wasn't so long, and we actually got the album just a day later when it mysteriously dropped on his website by surprise and sounded extremely unfinished. And again, it's in very typical Kanye fashion to deliver an unfinished album after many delays, but there's been a lot of very weird things going on with this rollout that we haven't seen from Kanye before. Firstly, this album wasn't just unfinished, it was basically unlistenable. This was a slap in the face to all Kanye fans, and even his deepest fans publicly criticized this album. And the weirdest part about all this is that we haven't heard a word from Kanye before the album dropped, all the way up until right now when he's probably seen all the hate that this album has received and the extremely low record sales. It's very unlike Kanye to not publicly comment on any Kanye-related scrutiny or criticism. And there might be some darker reasons why we haven't heard a word from Kanye, and again, we're going to touch on a lot of weird things in this video as to why Kanye should probably retire or at least take a step back and regroup, clean house, change his team around, and dissect what's going on, because this is more than just bad music. Kanye might genuinely be in danger by the people around him. And to understand why Kanye might be in danger, we gotta take a step back to a couple years ago when Kanye introduced some new individuals into his camp. Particularly, there was two very questionable individuals that started rolling with Kanye everywhere he went, and that was Milo Yiannopoulos. I don't know if I'm pronouncing his name right, but he was working for Kanye as the chief of staff of Yeezy, and he allegedly made some very disgusting PDF file statements. I'm not going to get too much into his background, but he'll play an important role in this story later on. And aside from him, Kanye was also very closely associated with Nick Fuentes, who is an open anti-Semite and white supremacist. Now, Kanye is a very free thinker. Obviously, he proclaims himself as a free thinker, but you could tell through the innovation within his music and fashion that Kanye thinks outside the box, and his creativity stems from this innate desire or drive to be different or push boundaries. But aside from being a free thinker, I think a lot of people underestimate how much influence he actually takes from others around him. Way back when he was just a producer trying to become a rapper, he got signed to Roc-a-fella and spent a lot of time with Jay-Z. During that time, as Jay-Z called himself the best rapper alive, Kanye was on a quest to replace him as the best rapper alive, or at least become the biggest rapper alive. And when he very much did become the biggest rapper alive, all of the artists that he associated with and collaborated with were either individuals who had a strong pulse or control on the current sound of music, to the point where Kanye could kind of latch on and leverage their talent to expand and evolve his own music. Or he would target up-and-coming aspiring rappers like Kid Cudi, Big Sean, or even Designer, and incorporate their sounds into his projects. And yeah, I know what you're probably thinking. He said that signing Big Sean was the worst decision he ever made in his career, but Big Sean was right there next to Kanye for a lot of the recording sessions of Graduation and My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy. He's publicly stated that he's wrote for Kanye during those recording sessions, as well as other records, and Kanye has most definitely taken inspiration from guys like Sean or Sci-Hi the Prince or Kid Cudi to elevate his bars and move his sound in a different direction. And regardless of that, once he gets with Kim Kardashian, you can see a blatant shift in Kanye's priorities as he puts less focus into music and more into fashion ventures and going to the Met Gala, starting up clothing brands with and without Kim. During his time with her, he also endorses Donald Trump. Then he proceeds to get engulfed in politics. Then he decides to run for president, and this decision was what ultimately led him to isolate himself from his in-laws and eventually divorce Kim Kardashian. And this divorce was the catalyst for what I consider a massive creative and mental downward spiral for Kanye, which started in around the beginning of 2022 when he began harassing Pete Davidson and Kim Kardashian on Instagram and rolling out his sequel to Donda 2. And Kanye does a very good job at kind of giving you a glimpse or a snapshot of where he's at in life based on the music he releases at the time. In 2023, he was frustrated with the limitations that giant corporations set on him in the fashion world, so that year's album, Yeezus, featured very avant-garde, aggressive, hostile performances and sounds from Kanye. Farther back in 2009, after the passing of his mother, a grieving Kanye West scrapped his Good Ass Job album to create 808s and Heartbreak, which was a project that he claims was influenced by devastation and heartbreak. Then, later on in 2018, he even redid his entire Ye album after having an outbreak at TMZ and receiving backlash from the public and from his ex-wife, Kim. So yeah, it's safe to say that Kanye is definitely influenced and inspired by the people around him, and his music is a reflection of where he's at mentally at that point in his life. And in 2022, being newly single, seemingly alone and isolated, Kanye proceeded to give us his worst musical offering of all time with Donda 2. It was an unfinished, unfocused, meaningless mess of a project that was riddled with mumbling performances, mediocre production, and lacked any of the soul that previous Kanye projects were known to have. The album lacked so much direction that it couldn't even make it to streaming platforms. It was only available through Kanye's stem player device, which was basically an Alibaba version of the iPod Shuffle. See, the idea of the stem player was that Kanye will update and revamp the album as the months pass, which at the time seemed like an innovative approach to releasing music in the digital era, but you'll realize later on in this video as to why this is really more of just an excuse to put out mediocre music and label it as genius art. And this kind of plays into why Kanye is in a dangerous place today. See, again, Kanye's music is a reflection of the current state of his ego. When he released the unfinished, messy Donda 2, you could tell his mind state was messy. You could tell he had no closure in the marriage with his wife at the time, Kim Kardashian. You could tell he was on the verge of going manic as he was releasing new Instagram rants every single day, posting memes constantly, and exposing texts from Kim Kardashian and Pete Davidson. He wasn't even allowed to show up to his daughter's birthday party at the time, and only made it there because Travis Scott leaked the address to him. And all this was a build-up for what was to come. See, with Kanye being isolated from his family and seemingly becoming more angry and combative against Skeet and Kim Kardashian with each and every day, it was only a matter of time before Kanye grew his team out and welcomed in new individuals, people who were also isolated from society due to their comments and behavior. And that's when anti-Semites like Nick Fuentes and alleged PDF files like Milo Yiannopoulos came into the picture, and they rolled with Kanye everywhere he went and eventually became his cheerleaders in late 2022 when he went on a massive press run praising the Mustache Man. I'm not going to say his name here, but if you know, you know. And now what's interesting is whether or not it was truly the people around Kanye that inspired him to engage in such hate speech in late 2022. It seemed like the motive or all that frustration stemmed from contractual obligations that Kanye wanted to get out of. And so what he was trying to do was basically make himself so cancelable to the point where he could lose all his endorsement deals, fashion deals, and record deals so he could be quote unquote free. And honestly, this kind of worked. See, a couple of years before this, Kanye sued his record label EMI. It was a subdivision of Universal Music Group, and he accused them of trapping him into a contract of quote-unquote servitude. He ended up settling this lawsuit with them, but then he proceeded to attack Def Jam and Universal Music Group on Twitter and exposed his contracts with Def Jam, with one document from 2014 stating that the record label had the benefit of a unilateral extension clause. This means that as long as Kanye was a profitable investment for Def Jam, they could basically tell Kanye that they're going to keep him locked into his recording contract for an extended period of time. And the clause was a one-way street. That means that basically the record label doesn't need Kanye's consent to extend his contract. So what better way to escape these slave-like contracts than by making yourself so cancelable and so unprofitable that your label has no choice but to drop you, right? I mean, according to Kanye, slavery was a choice after all. But we'll see later on in this video why his comments on slavery were wrong when he first made them and why they're most definitely wrong right now, as Kanye is metaphorically a slave or a sheep to the blood-sucking people and substances that surround him. And between him and Universal Music Group parting ways in late 2021, and then the anti-Semitic comments that came, the harassing of Pete Davidson and Kim Kardashian, and the unfinished projects like Donda 2, Kanye was not only isolated by his former in-laws, but now he was also isolated from the very industry and fan base that made him the legend that he is today. And what's disturbing is since 2022, all we've heard from Kanye is either silence or controversial, sometimes hate-fueled comments that seem to isolate him even further from his fans and former corporate partners. It's always been unclear whether this new Kanye gets himself into these controversies just for attention, to get himself out of a bad contract, if he's genuinely just mentally ill, or if there's a deeper issue at hand. And after recently trying and failing to join in on Kendrick Lamar's beef to help in what he calls the elimination of Drake, Kanye shortly after that revealed that he actually planned on retiring from music altogether. It seemed like he had almost just given up. He texted Rich the Kid, "I'm retiring from professional music, not sure what else to do." Now, Keep in mind, this was after releasing Vultures 1, making a massive commercial comeback, and announcing Vultures 2 and 3. But it's definitely not unlike this new scatterbrain version of Kanye to announce albums and then scrap him. At this point, he's notorious for flip-flopping, dropping unfinished projects, or just announcing projects, then never dropping them altogether. And I really do think he had no genuine plans of dropping Vultures 2 and really just wanted to retire. Keep in mind, he texted Rich the Kid about his retirement plans in July of 2024, and less than 1 month later, a cryptic announcement goes up on his Yeezy.com website that Vultures 2 would be releasing on August 2nd. It's also important to note that throughout all these weird rollouts that we've had from Kanye lately, all the way back to 2016 with Pablo, where he would announce a release date and then delay the album, we've always heard these announcements directly from Kanye. It was never done through his website or any third parties. Kanye loves to hear himself speak, so it's very strange that we haven't heard him speak on this release or since he announced that he wanted to retire. But Vultures 2 did end up dropping a day after it was announced, randomly appearing online at like 3 a.m. on Sunday morning, and it'd be one thing to let the music do the talking, and it would actually be very refreshing to have Kanye deliver his fans a project and just shut up and let them enjoy it. But this is different. Kanye never announced the project aside from a post on his website. The album dropped without Kanye saying a word about it. It's received tons of hate from his fans, but there's been no comment from Kanye. All we've gotten is some improvements to the mixing of certain records, the addition of Ty Dolla $ign vocals. He made a couple deluxe editions of the album to add in new records that fans wanted to hear. But again, none of these things came directly from Kanye himself. They've all been executed by and communicated through his team. They even released the notoriously delayed leaked record, Can You Be, which is a song that Kanye has been on record saying that he dislikes. So why would Kanye release something that he previously said he does not like without even making changes to the song? Now, the new changes to the album are understandable. This album wasn't just unfinished, it was literally untouched. What I mean by that is every song on the album is an unfinished version of a track we've already heard Kanye preview before. Some songs have already leaked in their entirety, like, in my opinion, the best song on the album, 530, which Kanye literally put on the album from a YouTube leak. Like, he downloaded the MP3 off of YouTube, did nothing to change the quality to sound like it's a high-quality record, like a song off an album should be, and he just released it as it was, with the whole second half of the song being Kanye mumbling. And put it this way, if half the song is just Kanye mumbling and it's still the best written song on this album, that should put into perspective how bad the rest of this project truly is. First off, that song was written by Fabio Foreign in 2022, right after Kanye's divorce with Kim. The song is all about Kanye's divorce with Kim, and it has nothing to do with the concepts that the rest of the album is about. Other songs off the album literally include AI Kanye vocals. Like, he didn't rap the reference tracks himself, he just cloned his voice using AI and slapped it onto reference tracks that Sci-Hi the Prince did. And we don't need to go into too much detail on why it's a really bad look for the future of the music industry if artists are literally cloning their voice with AI to rap their songs for them. But other than it being a bad sign for what's to come, it also just sounds horrible. It sounds robotic. It sounds like a fake record. It sounds like a joke. And Kanye has treated his fans poorly by releasing, very poor, unfinished music. But this is another level. This is another strength of slap in the face that we've never received from Kanye before. All the other records sound like unfinished demos. Again, there's songs that we've already heard Kanye preview before, but somehow when they were being previewed at his listening parties, they sounded like they were more finished than they do on the actual album. Songs like Time Moving Slow feature much worse production than they had when they were initially previewed. And I wasn't the biggest fan of Vultures 1, but that project at least had some redeemable qualities. There was rapping efforts from Kanye that actually sounded like he was trying. He was touching on subject matter that was relevant to what he was actually going on at the time, not rapping about his divorce from 3 years ago. But again, don't get me wrong, 530 is the best record off this project, so I'm happy he did release it, I guess, officially. But with Vultures 1, the production sounded like it was at least finished, the mixing was better, the features actually sounded like they belonged on the album. I mean, with this one, you have mumbling verses from guys like Kodak. He completely botched his record with Lil Wayne that was on this album, and I mean, I've been waiting for a Kanye-Lil Wayne collaboration for almost 10 years now. I think the last one we got was on 808s and Heartbreak, so extremely disappointing to see him misuse Lil Wayne's vocals the way he did. The only positive thing I could say about this album is the intro is actually quite incredible. It features great production from Fred again. It's an intense beat with a strong build-up, great performance from Ty Dolla $ign, strong performance from Kanye. It could be the best intro off a Kanye album since Feel the Love by Kids See Ghosts or even Ultralight Beam off Life of Pablo. But again, it's a song that's already been previewed a million times. We've heard it for months at this point. So it's a massive slap in the face to Kanye fans to just slap this on this project, barely change it up, up, not add anything new to it, but it does serve as a great foreshadowing moment for what else is to come off this album. Basically just a bunch of unfinished demos and extremely uninspired performances from Kanye. And I'm not usually the type to, spread conspiracies or really discuss them at length, but honestly, to me, this album sounds like it was put out against Kanye's will, as a cash grab by his team. Like, why have we not heard Kanye say a word about the project or the backlash that it's received? Why did they start adding songs to the album that Kanye publicly says he dislikes, and only adding new songs after realizing that the sales for this album are going to be the lowest that Kanye would ever experience in his entire career? Well, we might have some answers to these questions. See, remember that guy Milo that we were talking about just a few minutes ago, the former head of staff at Yeezy and the one rolling with Kanye throughout his whole anti-Semitic campaign? Yeah, well, that guy recently came on Twitter to say that there is a reason why Kanye is no longer capable of successfully releasing music or clothing. In fact, there are several reasons, but the most serious and the most recent is his dentist, Thomas Colony. Now, this is a direct quote from a tweet that Milo released, and he wrote an entire Twitter thread describing a very disturbing situation involving Kanye, and although he's not known to be the most credible person, he did release an affidavit where he tells the exact same story, basically swearing under oath that this is the truth as he attempts to get Kanye's dentist's license revoked. There's this Kanye fan page on Twitter called Ye Unreleased that described the situation best, where they posted a picture saying, "Disappointed with Vultures? Well, that's because Kanye has been supplied illegally with nitrous oxide supplied to him by licensed California dentist Thomas Colony. This has left Ye in a state of apparent brain damage that, according to supposed remarks from Eric Sui, or Kui, I don't know how to pronounce his name, but this is basically the guy who's the current Yeezy's chief of staff, the guy who replaced Milo. He's basically saying that this brain damage on Kanye could be permanent. Now, Thomas has managed to extort Kanye for money, convincing Ye to live with him and drug Kanye into a barely conscious state in order to further extort him. This has been allowed by Eric, who has threatened Kanye fan pages against spreading the story. This has all been confirmed by both fan pages who have been threatened by Eric Sui and the former Yeezy head of staff, Milo. While you may be wary of these accusations due to Milo's infamous political opinions, he has gone out of his way to swear this information is true under oath. Reaching out to Kanye directly to stop this is next to impossible, as it appears that Eric is running his social media. To help, share this information around as much as possible. Reach out to news stations, podcasts, YouTubers, any relevant figures with a large platform and following. #SaveYe. The artist cannot create if he is slowly being killed. And a lot of this does line up. See, Kanye had dental work a few months ago to have titanium grills installed in his mouth. It was done by Thomas Colony, the dentist who is now in question. And according to the Yale Medical Journal, inhaling nitrous oxide recreationally can impair your body's metabolism, and we have seen Kanye gain an unusual amount of weight in the last few years. And long-term use of nitrous oxide or laughing gas can also lead to damage in your brain, your blood, and it could lead to psychosis. So it's very concerning if Kanye's been on this for a while, as he's already seemed to be in a poor mental state for the last couple of years, and could be deteriorating even further, causing irreversible brain damage if he continues using nitrous oxide consistently. There's video evidence of him also saying that he's on the nitros, so it's just scary to see all this unfolding, and it draws a parallel to a very similar story in Ye's life when we saw his old trainer, Arlie Pasternak, the guy who called 911 to get Kanye hospitalized in 2016. That same guy sent him a very disturbing text a couple of years later threatening to medicate him, where he basically said, "I'm going to help you one of a couple ways. First, you and I sit down and have a loving and open conversation, but you don't use cuss words, and everything that is discussed is based in fact and not some crazy stuff that dumb friend of yours told you or you saw in a tweet. Second option, I have you institutionalized again, where they medicate the crap out of you and you go back to zombie land forever. Playdate with the kids just won't be the same." Now, this tells a very scary tale that basically the people around Kanye may not only not just have his best interest at heart and are looking to exploit him for his money, but these same people may also have the power to take advantage and medicate him against his will. Or Kanye may believe that it's voluntary, but these substances are very, very addictive, and these people that he hires or surrounds himself with are supposed to take on the role of a doctor or a caretaker or a health professional, right? He had his trainer threaten to get him institutionalized or drug him into zombie land, and now he has his dentist, who is basically living right next to Kanye, constantly supply him with laughing gas. And there was even text messages that leaked where the dentist and Kanye were discussing trying to have this laughing gas legalized to be used recreationally. So Kanye might think that he's hiring these people, or vultures should I say, to basically protect him and have his best interest at heart, but they're taking advantage and leveraging their role as a health professional to basically medicate Kanye so they could then proceed to take advantage of him. So for that reason, I think Kanye, beyond anything, really needs to clear house, get rid of the entire team of vultures that surround him, and focus on his well-being instead of the music. Not only is he destroying his legacy with these albums, but even worse, the people who are helping get this album distributed and grow the Yeezy brand seem to not have Kanye's best interest in mind and try to leech money off him. But also, judging the background of a lot of these guys, they don't seem like the best people to surround yourself with in general. Again, we saw Kanye in his most vulnerable state back in 2022, fresh off the divorce with Kim Kardashian, begin to surround himself with anti-Semites, white supremacists, and just people who are basically shunned out from the rest of society due to their horrible political stances and views. And if his music and the people he surrounds himself with always seem to give kind of a snapshot or display of Kanye's ego in that current state of time, then it's pretty obvious that the subject matter within Vultures 2, the blatant lack of care into finishing any song off the project before releasing it, and the horrible people that are now part of Kanye's Yeezy organization, or just that dentist that he has living right next to him supplying him allegedly with laughing gas, show that Kanye's probably in the worst mental state that we've ever seen him throughout his entire career. And unfortunately, unless he gets these people away from him, things may only get worse for Kanye. So that's why I would say, as someone who's been listening to him for the past 20 years, who's seen not only his artistic evolution, but also his evolution into a man who seemed to forcibly isolate himself from the rest of society, masking his controversial opinions and erratic behavior as a means to attain what he would call freedom. I would say the deeper Kanye goes into this rabbit hole of trying to chase that freedom, the closer he gets to his ultimate demise. So I really hope for his sake and for the sake of his loved ones and his fans that he maybe takes a step back from music. I mean, I don't really want to hear another Kanye project until he clears up his mental space and until he clears up his entire organization of all these disgusting people that seem to be surrounding him. Because until he does that, it seems like we're only getting darker snapshots of a man who at the very least needs clarity, but truly really needs a lot of help that I don't think he's ready to get himself and will definitely not find from the people around him. But let me know what you guys think in the comments. Hopefully this isn't true. Hopefully he's in a great mental state, and if he's not, hopefully he gets the help that he needs. Let me know what you guys want to see next, and I'll catch you in the next one.